This conference will now be recorded.
So now let us write one class. Pen. Now what I do is I will create the object of pen. So what are we doing here? We are creating the object of pen. Whenever we create the object, the object gets created in the memory. All the non-static members will be loaded into object. Yes or no? So as soon as we tell new pen, object gets created in the memory and all the non-static members will get loaded into memory. So now the question is, who does that job for us? Who is going to create the object and load the members into memory? That is constructor. Okay. So whenever we create the object, the constructor of that class is going to be called. Now let us see how does the constructor looks like. Constructor looks like a method. Constructor looks like what? A method, but it will be not having any return type. So how does the constructor look like? Constructor look like a method without any return type, and constructor name will be same as the class name. What is our class name? Pen. So constructor name will be same as a class name. Constructor looks like what? Method. Constructor looks like what? Method with same name as a class name without any return type. So what will be the name of the constructor? It will be same as the class name. How does it look like? It look like a method. And what is another property? It don't have a return type. See, method has a return type here. Method has a return type, but constructor don't have a return type. And method name can be any name, but constructor name should be same as the class name. So next, when does the constructor will be called? Whenever we create the object, the constructor of that class is going to be called. Clear? When does the constructor is going to be called? Whenever we create the object, constructor of that class is going to be called. Now let us see that. Class pen. P dot right. If I call this, see the right method is getting called. Now I am creating the object. So I'll run. So is the object getting created? Yes, it is getting created. Right? Object is getting created here. No issue about that. So whenever we create the object, who is called constructor. Now let us write the constructor. So now let me run. See, as soon as we tell new pen, the constructor of that class is going to be called. Okay. Constructor is a special method which has a name same as a class name but without any return type. Constructor is a special method which has a name same as a class name but without any return type. Okay, next. Constructor will be called when we create the object. So constructor will be called when we create the object. Clear everyone? Any doubt on this?
So you need a constructor to make an object work.
Yes, exactly.
So then how was it,
Not to
how
work,
were
to
you able
get
to,
the to get it created. Yeah, come again.
yeah, but then how were you able to use those objects before without the
Till
constructor?
now, right? Good question. I'll come to that point very shortly. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, let me take one class called as person. Int age, string name. Now what I do, I'll create the object of person. Person object gets created. Age and name gets loaded. So I'll store this object in one variable of type person. Then I do p dot age is equals to 15. So now 15 gets initialized here. P dot name is equals to David. So what we did here, we are creating the object and initializing the members. We are creating the object and initializing the members. So now what I do, I create a constructor. What should be my name of my constructor? Same as the class name. This time what I do, I will have two parameters inside the constructor. Then what I do, I will tell age is equals to A, name is equals to N. Name is equals to N. So now what I do is, I create the object by passing 20, comma, Anil. So now what happens, the object gets created, age and name gets loaded, age 20, name Anil. To store this, I will take one variable of type person. Can you see the difference here? So here we are creating the object. In the next line, we are initializing the members. But when we look into this scenario, we are creating the object and we are initializing the members in the same line. But to do like this, we need what? Parameterized constructor. What type of constructor? Parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor. Constructor with one or more parameters is called as parameterized constructor. Clear? So now we shall have a look into this. Person, string name, comma, age, name is equals to N, age is equals to A, comma, 20, 20. So what I do is I will just write one simple method. Display name is name, age is age. Even I will call this method. So now we are getting name is Anil, age is 20. So now what I do, I'll create one more pen object. Dot display. So we are getting with respect to second object Rahul and 24. Okay, so what are we doing here? We are passing some value to the constructor, so that will come here. Okay, so what will be stored in N? Anil. What will be stored in A? 20. So now whatever stored in N, it is loaded into the global variable name. Whatever stored in A is loaded into the global variable age. See, when we create a person object, so now what we are going to do, we are going to create a person object and we will pass two arguments. We'll pass for two arguments. So a person object gets created. So all the global non-static members will load into object. Okay. Now name is equal to n. Whatever you are passing here, that is sitting in n. So what is present in n now? Anil. Anil is loaded into name. So now Anil gets loaded here. Whatever you are passing here, that is sitting in A. So what is present in A, that is loaded into age? What does A contains? 20. 20 loaded into age 20. Now to store this variable, I will to this object, I'll take one variable of type person. Okay, so then what we did, we wrote one display method, void display, where we displayed name and age. Right, so the display method, so here we are displaying what? Name and age. So when we display name with respect to this object, Anil will be the output. When we display age, 20 will be the output. Similarly, if I create new person with David, comma 15, again the same constructor is going to be called. Again the same constructor is going to be called. So this time, what will be passed into N? David. What will be passed into A? 15. So now when this object gets created, age and name are loaded. So to age, A value will go and sit, that is 15. To name, N value will go and sit, that is David. And when I call the display method with respect to this object, so age will be 15, name will be David. So here, this is one object where we are passing Anil and 20. So this is another object where we are passing Rahul and 24. So based on those respective objects, our values are going to depend upon. Clear? A constructor with one or more parameters is called as constructor. A constructor with one or more parameters is called as what? Parameterized constructor. Just a minute, guys. Okay. So constructor with one or more parameters is called as parameterized constructor. Okay. So what is the use of parameterized constructor? It is used to initialize the instance members of the class or non-static members of the class. Parameterized constructors are used to initialize the non-static members of the class. Okay, parameterized constructors are used to initialize the non-static members of the class. Clear? So here non-static or else they are also called as what? Instance members of the class. So parameterized constructor uses only one use it has, that is to initialize the instance members of the class. What happens if we don't use the parameterized constructors? So then we should initialize each variable separately after creating the object. Clear? Fine. I'll show you even that so that you will get an idea. See, if we don't use the parameterized constructor, what we should do is marker m dot size is equals to 2.4, m dot brand is equals to Camlin. Okay, like this. Okay, we need three lines. In the first line, we are creating the object and then we are initializing the members. But here, what are we doing? In one line only, we are completing our job of what? Creating the object and initializing the members. So, parameterized constructor will help us to initialize the non-static members of the class as soon as we create the object. Here we are creating the object and then initializing. Here, while creating the object itself, we are initializing. So whichever way is comfortable to you, you can go with that way. If you want, you can have a parameterized constructor. If you don't want to have a parameterized constructor, so this is how you are going to initialize your members. If we use a parameterized constructor, so this is how you are going to initialize your members. Sorry, like this. The display is left to you. I'm just using display to display the values. That's it. That is have no use at all here in this scenario. Just to make you understand that the values are getting displayed, I'm just using this method. Okay. I can keep you one in marker also. Display brand is sizes. Okay, understood here? Right? See, to display, to initialize, yes, we're doing all Angama here. But here it was quite easy, right? So in the same line, we are creating the object and initializing the members. So what is the use of a parameterized constructor? Parameterized constructor is used to initialize the instance members of a class. Instance members of a class. Clear, everyone? Do you have any doubt on this?
So if the class member, there is more than one integer type or more than one string type, how would you list them in the parameter? Is it separating by commas?
Yes, yes, yes. Here, for example, int what I will take int height. Okay, at that time, what you should do? Put comma int h. Then here you tell height is equals to h, like this. Clear?
Yes, thank you.
So then here also you can display height. Right? So here also you should give height 175 centimeters, 155 centimeters, like this. Okay, height is 155, 175, like that. Clear?
Yes, thank you.
Test C class count my method. So now what I do, I'll create the object of okay, each method is getting called. So here what are we doing? Creating the object. But is there a constructor in this class? No, there is no constructor. Right? There is no constructor which is written by the user, but there is a constructor in this class which is written by the compiler. Okay, so in this cow class, there is one constructor. We are not able to see it because we are not writing it. So whenever we don't write a constructor, compiler will write a constructor inside the class. And that constructor is called as default constructor. Clear? When does the compiler writes a default constructor? When we don't write any constructor, compiler writes one constructor inside the class, and that constructor is called as default constructor. When we don't write any class, the compiler will write one constructor, and this write one constructor. That constructor is called as default constructor. When we don't write any constructor inside the class, the compiler will write one constructor. That constructor is called as default constructor. Looks like example. It looks like this. Okay, so this how your default constructor will be. Okay. So public is the access specifier. What does the default constructor will be having? Default constructor will have a public access specifier always. What is access specifier? We will understand it later. Don't worry right now. Okay, understood? When we don't write any constructor inside the class, the compiler will write one constructor. That constructor is called as what? Default constructor. Okay, remember one thing, compiler will not write a default constructor if we write any of the constructor. Okay, compiler will not write a default constructor if we write any of the constructor. Compiler won't write any constructor when we don't write when we write our own constructor. Okay, compiler won't write any constructor when we write our own constructor. Compiler will not write a default constructor if we write our own constructor. Clear, everyone?
No, then why should I write? The compiler will only write no if I don't write.
Correct. But compiler will not write this constructor. If you want to initialize the members, right, compiler won't do that.
Oh,
Okay.
for
See,
okay.
in marker class, is the compiler initializing? No, we are initializing it manually. Clear? If you want to get that feature, what you should do? You should write a constructor. Then you should initialize. Got it?
Yeah.
Class dog, string name, int ID. So ID of the dog. So next I will take now I'll tell dog. This display method is just for the sake of understanding, guys. Okay, this is nothing to do with the constructor. So let's hide. Okay, now let us run it. See, we are getting a default value. We have already understood what is a default value. Default value is the value given to a global variables where we don't assign any value to them. Yes or no? Right? So default value is the value given to a global variables when we don't assign any value to them. Hope you remember this. If you have revised, you will remember. If you have not revised, you won't remember. Clear? That is the reason why I always tell you, please revise everything, whatever has been done in the class every day. Spend at least 15 to 20 minutes of your time to just brush what has been done in our previous classes. That alone will help you guys to survive. Or else, no, you will forget everything by end of the course. Okay. So now, what I do, I will write one constructor. I will write one constructor. Name is equals to n, id is equals to I. See, line number 23 is giving us the error. I will remove this constructor removed. It is working. If I write this, if I write my constructor, it is not working. Do you know why? When we don't write any constructor in the class, there is one default constructor. So default constructor will be called. When we write our own constructor, compiler won't write a default constructor. So now to create the object, there is no constructor left in the class. So which constructor is there? So there is a parameterized constructor. So you should call the parameterized constructor. See, now it is working. Yes or no? Right? When we write our own constructor, there will be no parameterized constructor. Sorry, when we write our own constructor, then there will be no default constructor. So it is our responsibility to write a default constructor. Sorry, it is our responsibility to write another constructor if you want to work with even zero parameters. Clear? So what you can do is you can just write one more constructor like this. Okay, so now it works. But if you write like this, then no. If you don't use this, then no, it won't work.
Hi Vikas, sorry to interrupt.
No
We
big deal.
can write more than one constructor.
Yes, I'll come to that point. Yes, we can. Clear everyone? Fine. So when we write our own constructor, then the compiler won't write the default constructor. Okay. Constructor. In constructor, we have two types of constructor. One is default constructor and another one is user defined constructor. We have what? Two types of constructor. What are those? Default constructor and user defined constructor. In user defined constructor, we have two types. One is zero parameterized constructor and another one is parameterized constructor. Okay, so we have two types of constructor. One is zero parameterized constructor and one more is parameterized constructor. Any constructor written by the developer means us are called as user defined constructor. Any constructor which is written by the compiler is called as default constructor. Okay, default constructor. You might be asking, because how does the default constructor looks and how does the zero parameterized constructor looks? Let me take class curve. In this class, there is a default constructor. Even I can also make my. So in a van, I'm writing a constructor. So this is zero parameterized constructor. In a cow class, there is a default constructor. Even that default constructor is also similar to zero parameterized constructor, but it is written by compiler. See, one statement I tell you, zero parameterized constructor, default constructor, both look same. Both looks same, but one is written by the user and another one is written by the compiler. Okay, that is the only difference. If a zero parameterized constructor written by compiler, it is a default constructor. That's it. Okay. So in a cow class, there is one constructor that is default constructor written by who? Compiler. Okay. In van, we are writing a constructor similar to default constructor, but as it is written by us, we don't call it as a default constructor. We call it as a parameterized constructor. Okay, but how many parameters? Zero parameters. So we call it as zero parameterized constructor. Constructor with one or more parameter is called as parameterized constructor. Constructor with zero parameter is called as zero parameterized constructor. Clear? Any doubt on this, guys? Next. I will take one class bus I will have one constructor with zero parameter. I will have one constructor with two parameters. I will have one more constructor. Two more parameters. So what are we doing here? We are having multiple constructors inside a class. This concept is called as constructor overloading. A class with more than one constructor is called as what? Constructor overloading. Okay. So interviewer will ask, is it possible to overload the constructors? Yes, we can overload the constructors. Okay. So to overload, what is mandatory? There should be change in what? Number of parameters or type of parameters. See, in the first method, there is zero parameter. In second method, there are two parameters. So there is a change in number of parameters. But if you compare the second method and the third constructor, okay, there is a change in type of a parameter, not in number of parameters. So to do constructor overloading, there should be change in number of parameters or type of parameters. Class.
So just like overloading, can we have overriding also in
No,
constructors?
no,
Okay.
no, no. I'll come to that point. Okay. So a class is having multiple constructors. Okay. A class containing multiple constructors is called as what? Constructor overloading. Constructor overloading. A class can have more than one constructors. Here, if you want 10 constructor, you can just go ahead and write 10 constructors also. Okay. No one can stop you by that. Okay, it's left to you how many constructors you want to keep in your class. Okay, it depends on the requirement. So, how many constructors you need in the class?
I got a silly question.
Yeah.
Like in the second constructor, the parameter types are like int, and the third
Mm.
constructor we have double A and double B. So
Mm.
instead of like double A int B, is it going to be overloading, or uh, by syntax is it going to be overloading, or it's gonna throw an error? Because one of the like B parameters data type is staying same with the second one.
Come again, like you, here it is int, here it is double. So,
Uh, so in the third one, instead of B, like B make it
okay, yes,
int B.
like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this works. There is
Okay.
a change in type, right? Here it is double, here it is int. Here it is int, here it is double. There is a change in type.
Okay. At least one change will be fine.
Yes. There should be at
Okay.
least one change.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. A class having multiple constructors with parameters or different type of parameters is called as constructor overloading. Is called as what? Constructor overloading. A class having multiple constructors with different number of parameters or different type of parameters is called as what? Constructor overloading. Okay.
So when an object is created,
Correct.
so which constructor will be called? Because we have so many with the same
Yes.
name.
Correct. I'm coming to that now.
Okay.
Okay. So now in a class we have multiple constructors. So this is called as constructor overloading. Now we need to understand which constructor will be called when. Okay. So now are you creating the object? Yes. So are you passing any parameter? No. So now compiler will go to var and it will check, is there any constructor with zero parameters? Is there any constructor with zero parameters here? Yes, there is one constructor with zero parameter. It will execute this now. Clear? So this constructor is executed. If I remove this constructor, automatically line number 25, if you look, it gives error. See, it is giving error. Why? Because there is no constructor with zero parameters. So hence this line won't work. Got it? Now, this is just for your sake of understanding, guys. That is nothing to do with constructor. Van 24. So now compiler checks, is there any constructor inside a van class with int alone as a parameter? Is there any constructor with int alone as a parameter? Yes, there is a constructor with int alone as a parameter. So compiler will execute this now. Okay, I'll do this for time. This one. Clear? So int constructor is getting executed. Clear? So if you have both, so once it will be calling the zero parameterized constructor, then it is calling the parameterized constructor. Now, I will tell 24.2. See, now it is not working. Why? Because there is no constructor with a double as a parameter. With a double as a parameter. If there was a constructor with a double alone as a parameter, then it would have worked. Then it would have worked. There is no constructor with double alone as a parameter, so it is not working. Now I'll tell 24, 15. See, again it is not working. Why? Because there is no constructor with only int as a parameter. With only two int as a parameter. Is there any constructor with two int as a parameter? No. So hence it is not going to work.
So it's recognized by the data type of the parameter.
Exactly. Yes. Now I'm calling a constructor with int, string and int. Is there a constructor with string and int? Yes. So it is going to be called. But if you do vice versa, int, comma, string, this won't work. Why? Because there is no constructor with int, comma, string. There is a constructor with string, comma, int, but not int, comma, string. So it won't work. Clear, everyone? Which constructor will be called when we are creating the object? So if there are multiple constructor, which parameter you are passing while creating the object, based on that, the respective constructor is going to be called. Clear, everyone? Do you have any doubt on this?
Got it.
Now let me have one more class. Class student string name and roll number. Okay. Name is name. Okay. Now what I do? Create the object of student. So to hold this student object, I will take one variable of type student. Display I'm calling. Yes, Raju and 22 is coming. See, in industry there is a rule. In industry there is a rule. Simply to write a program there is no rule, but in industry there is a rule. Every variable used in the file, every variable used in the class, every variable used in the method should have a proper meaning. If the variable has no meaning, then it is not entertained to use. Okay, so industry tells that every variable used in your program should be having a meaning. See, here we have a variable called as n and r. They don't have any meaning. So I'll tell name, roll num, name. Okay, I did that. So now what is this? This is a global variable which you can see in the blue. Which you can see in the brown is a local variable. Clear? That day only we have understood any variable declared inside the method is a local variable. Constructor is also one type of method. Clear? So even whatever the variable declared inside the class constructor is, they are also local. Now let me run. What happened? Name is null, roll number is null, 0. See, when the local variable name and the global variable name are same, the priority is always given to a local variable. The priority is always given to local variable. So what you should do, you should tell this dot name, this dot roll number. So now that is clear. So whenever there is a naming conflict between the local variable and the global variable, we should always use this keyword to point to the global variable. Understood? Whenever there is a conflict between what? Local variable and the global variable, we should make use of this keyword to point to the what? Global member. Okay, if we don't use this, it will be pointing to local member only. If there is a naming conflict, I'm telling, if there is a naming conflict, if there is no naming conflict, this keyword is not required. Whenever there is a naming conflict, you can make use of this keyword to point to the global members of a class. Clear, everyone? Any doubt on this? In industry, everywhere you will see this only. Why? Because whenever they are using this, it is pointing to a global member. Clear, guys, everyone? Okay, guys. So let's hold on for today. Clear? So tomorrow we shall understand the other things like abstract classes, interfaces, and clear. So this is what all about the constructor is. So please go through all the videos. So all the examples. Okay, and please go through the video. If you have any confusion, you can come back to me and ask tomorrow. Okay, clear, everyone? Anyone having any issue, any problem?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah,
I was wondering if you could give any assignment.
yes, I will give you some of the assignments. Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Alright.
Any other questions, guys? Fine. Okay, so let's catch up tomorrow. I will share you the assignments through your email ID. Okay, so we shall catch up tomorrow. Have a nice time, guys. Thank you.